whose failure was your success this week?
Well, I'm going to start with Le'Veon Bell, right? Playing in that Jets offense, it's sort of like that old show where the rapper would come by and fix up your car. Like, they put all these other things in there. Yeah, exactly. They put all these things in there that looked great, but whatever, the car still didn't run all that great because it was still a 1979 Stanza. That's sort of the Jets offense right now, right? You got Le'Veon Bell getting you 6.5 fantasy points behind an offensive line that's an absolute disaster right now with a quarterback who's completely shook in the pocket. It stinks for Le'Veon Bell and people who have him on their team, but when you're playing against them, you hate to see it.
You hate to see it, just like you hate to see a fish tank in somebody's back seat.
Right.
What is the point there?
What's happening there?
Carson Wentz. Oh, less than 14 fantasy points. You hate to see it. And you know what? I was trying to be the sporting type. I went to my buddy Cody, and I said, hey, man, I noticed that you're starting Carson Wentz this week. You know he's going up against the Buffalo Bills, who are one of the toughest defenses in the NFL. And he said, I'm undaunted. I don't care. And he was sort of right because the Eagles offensively were great, but Carson Wentz didn't play well. Cody lost, and you know what you hate to see?
It. Absolutely. You know what else you hate to see? Nick Chubb. Playing for the Cleveland Browns, and we knew the matchup wasn't going to be great against the New England Patriots, but you know what? The good is that he ran for 131 yards. The bad is that he had no touchdowns and 2 fumbles. So he ends up getting you like 10 points, which is fine. But you got Nick Chubb. You're expecting a whole lot more out of Nick Chubb than that.
Absolutely.
So in the future, he's still going to get touches. He'll be fine. But, man, this week, you really hate to see it.
Oh, you hate to see it.
Hate to see it.
You know what else you hate to see is somebody has Phillip Lindsay on their roster, and a couple of weeks ago I said, hey, man, I noticed you also have Alvin Kamara. Do you want to just take Latavius Murray and give me Phillip Lindsay? And he's like, nope, I'm good. And then what happened this week? Phillip Lindsay goes out and scores 12.6 fantasy points. And sorry, Doug, you lost because you know what? You didn't trust me. And you know what you hate to see? It. Cole?
You know what I hate to see? Mark is talking bad about stanzas. I had a 91, got me from point A to point B quite nicely.
My first car was an 82 stanza. It wasn't even a Nissan, it was a Datsun.
Yeah, brothers in arms just like that.
That's right.
I love to see Michael Fabiano because each week he takes us through the most confusing backfields in all the National Football League. Phillip Lindsay, he's normally in this segment. So when it comes to takeaways from the running backs and those committees this week, what is it, man?
Marcus talked about this earlier, but that Detroit backfield,
bringing up old stuff again,
I know.
huh?
Ty Johnson is a guy that, people spent a lot of fab on him. He was a high waiver wire claim last week. He didn't start. It was Trey Carson. He led the backfield in snaps at 38, but he was second in touches. He didn't see a red zone touch either. And in all, 4 Lions running backs played at least 10% of the offensive snaps. That's not good, my friend.
Yeah, lack of touches and a lack of snaps, just 38%, like you said, and like it says right there on the bottom line, known to the old school cats in the TV business as a Chiron.
I miss Kerryon Johnson.
Oh, okay. Who are you going with next?
Yeah, the Bills' backfield. Devin Singletary was second in touches behind Frank Gore, but he played 67% of the offensive snaps compared to Gore, who played just 29%. Singletary finished with a career-high 14.9 fantasy points, so maybe we're seeing a changing of the guard there in Buffalo from Gore to Singletary.
Okay, short drive from Buffalo to Philadelphia. Is that where you're going?
Jordan Howard, and I was completely wrong on this.
The Bears didn't need him. The Bears didn't need him.
You wait what happens this week. Jordan Howard played a season-high 74% of the offensive snaps. He had 24 touches. That was also a season high. He led all Eagles running back in red zone touches as well. Now, Miles Sanders played just 16% of the snaps, but he still had a big game because, this guy put up a massive fantasy point per touch average. Howard is playing this week against the Bears in what is a... The Bears have given up 29-plus fantasy points over the last 3 weeks to Josh Jacobs and then, of course, to Latavius Murray. And last week, they gave up a touchdown each to Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon. So Jordan Howard's going to have a nice big stat line this week.
Yeah, 24 touches last week, and a Chicago Bears defense forewarned is fair warned. We may see continues in week 9 for a few perhaps because it's 2 days before Halloween and a few of Sunday's matchups. They have us a little jittery, somewhat spooked. So, Fabs, when it comes to people that you're worried about starting this week, who are you starting with?
Kyler Murray. I'm not starting with him because I'm not starting Kyler Murray. against
You
the
traded him to me last week.
I know. We're still friends, though, right? I don't get how this happened with the schedule, but the Cardinals have to play the Niners in 2 of their next 3 games. That's not good for Kyler Murray. They're playing on Thursday night, which is Halloween. This is going to be more of a trick than a treat. You got to sit basically all your Cardinals against this defense.
Okay, Marcus, you're going with the guy whose nickname is very apropos for the time of year, right?
Yeah, Scary Terry McLaurin this week going against that Buffalo Bills defense. The Bills have given up the 4th fewest yards to receivers who line up out wide. They've given up just 2 touchdowns to wide receivers all season long. So even though he's been the main target in this Washington offense, this is not a matchup that I would prefer to fool with.
Might be Dwayne Haskins, too.
Also that.
Frank, what matchup has you spooked?
May I reiterate that I'm starting Lamar Jackson just in case anybody missed that? But one guy I might avoid, well, he probably not, but he's got a scary matchup. Let's talk about Kris Carson, who's been obviously very good this season. We thought that there was a chance he was going to lose his gig because he was putting the rock on the ground, but he's got a tough matchup this week. And Tampa Bay has allowed a lot of production through the air. It's on the ground. So this seems like the kind of game where every time the Seahawks get into the red zone, they're going to be throwing the football, which means probably more opportunities for guys like DK Metcalf.
Fabs, I don't know if your guy is going to be handing out any more free shoes, but his matchup has you spooked.
I know. Odell Beckham Jr., this is the 2nd week in a row where OBJ has got a very scary matchup. Last week, of course, it was against Stephon Gilmore and the Patriots. This week, Chris Harris and the Denver Broncos. Harris held T.Y. Hilton last week to just 7.4 fantasy points. I'm not telling you to sit OBJ, but I can tell you something right now. If I've got maybe DJ Chark or Michael Gallup, OBJ is going to find his way to the bench if I have depth.
Marcus, scary matchup for Fab's team. Michael, close your ears.
Yeah, Zeke Elliott here.
How dare you?
You're probably not going to sit Zeke because you don't have that kind of running back depth. But he's going up against, he's got a really tough matchup this week. And like, I would be concerned about putting him in my lineup. He's going to get plenty of opportunity. But this just maybe be a little bit concerned.
Zeke is going to crush those Giants.
All right.
Crush.
Wrap it up with a spooky matchup for Mr. 10 Pennies.
You know what? I will stay with this matchup and go with Daniel Jones right there. Danny Dimes probably not going to be making change. What up?
Oh.
I know.
Gotcha.
That was terrible. But you know what? The Cowboys defense has been terrible for opposing quarterbacks. Nobody has got close to over 20 fantasy points against them this season. So while Daniel Dimes is coming off that 4-touchdown performance, do not expect that this week.
All right, time now for us to do our best Madam Ruby impression. Let's look into our crystal ball to find a few cats who will have success this week because we're looking into the dark arts for some fantasy premonitions. We're going to put these guys and their psychic skills to the test. And Fabs, you're up first. We're going to look for a running back who's going to have 75 rushing yards and 75 receiving yards.
I'm doing my best Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost.
And Ghost, okay, all right.
Let's see here. I see Aaron Jones in your future.
What kind of voice is that?
It's a creepy, like, fortune-telling voice. I don't like you. Anyways, Aaron Jones led the Packers in targets last week. He is becoming a much better pass catcher than we've seen in recent seasons, and he's become one of the best running backs in fantasy football. You want to toss it to somebody else now?
I will. I'll toss it to Marcus because we're looking for a quarterback with 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown.
Voice.
Just like Madam Ruby in the Alamo.
I don't have a creepy voice, but nobody here is going to remember Karnak, but we're going to do that anyway.
Okay.
Let's see. Swimming with sharks.
I need the card.
Let's see. Playing on the 3rd rail. And a Seahawks quarterback. Things that are all dangerous.
Oh, I see what you were doing there.
You like that?
I like it. I love that.
That's clever.
Russell Wilson, you know, Ray just talked about Kris Carson and what that means for him going up against the Buccaneers and that run defense. But you look at him going against the pass defense, Russell Wilson going against that Buccaneers pass defense. There's an opportunity for him to get the ball down the field, as he mentioned, to lock it to DK Metcalf, and maybe he'll scramble one in himself.
Okay. That was really good.
That was.
I like
that was really
it.
solid. How about a wide receiver, 10 receptions, a touchdown? Hold on a second. Bruce Dickinson?
I got some saxophone music playing. I need the sounds of like the records my father used to play of Kenny G. Kenny Galladay. I'm sorry.
It's supposed to be Christopher Walken, right?
It's supposed to be. Listen, the fact that it's so bad makes it good. But I love Christopher Walken's acting ability. You know, Wedding Crashers, amazing. But anyways, Kenny Galladay.
Say without him.
Kenny Galladay. I love this matchup for the Lions this week. The Raiders have allowed a lot of fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. quarterbacks and wide receivers. So I anticipate this being one of the highest scoring games of the weekend. The Raiders and the Lions very generous on defense. So get them in.
I did not know that Frank Abagnale Sr. was such a fan of smooth jazz and the pride of Northern Illinois University.
Mice fall into a bucket of cream.
Today I stand before you as that second mouse.
So if the top options aren't available, we're going to identify a few guys that might still be worth picking up. Fab, so you got?
Yeah, Jonnu Smith, who I told people to pick up last week once you heard that Delaney Walker was not going to play, ends up giving you nearly 20 fantasy points, played 73% of the offensive snaps. If Walker can't go again this week, isn't it amazing how the Titans pass catchers now have some value with Ryan Tannehill throwing the football, Marcus?
Who would have thunk it, man? It's amazing. I'm looking at Jalen Samuels, and Fab's talked at the top of the show about James Conner and the shoulder injury that he suffered at the end of the Monday Night Football game here. We know that Samuels was not available on Monday night, but Mike Tomlin says he should be ready to go this week coming. So he is worth a pickup and add in a lot of leagues, especially if James Conner's not going to be healthy for this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Chris Connolly. Maybe you haven't heard, but he scored 20 fantasy points last week against those awful Jets. He has now put up 33 combined points in his last 2 games. Dede Westbrook got banged up in that game against the Men in Green, and the Texans, they've allowed the most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, so Chris Connolly should be on your radar.
I'm going back to backs here, running back specifically. Darryl Henderson is starting to see some more love in that Rams offense. Each of the last 3 weeks, he's played at least 34% of the snaps. That number jumped up to 46% of the snaps on this past Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. So he's starting to have a little standalone value because Sean McVay has given him work in that offense. We didn't expect it at the start of the year. That's where we are right now. Cole?